This MLB player was obese, yet so effective. He's perhaps the fattest guy to ever step onto a baseball field. Don't believe me? Well, in the middle of his career, he got up to nearly 300 pounds and his belt quite literally popped open in the middle of an at-bat. He ignored his diet, wasn't conditioning, and lied to his team about doing workouts. After becoming one of the highest paid players in baseball history, he completely gave up and let himself go. But he was once a superstar hitter who was able to play in MLB for 16 years. That player was Pablo Sandoval, one of the most controversial players of all time. In fact, he's a beloved fan favorite in one place, and in another is as hated as you could imagine. From going on social media in the middle of a game to gaining 21 pounds in 21 days, Pablo Sandoval is one of the craziest players in MLB history. His entire career began with a phone call from the San Francisco Giants. He signed in the early 2000s, officially making his MLB debut in 2008, playing catcher, first base, and third base. The young 22-year-old switch hitter immediately impressed, hitting for a .345 batting average, 3 homers, and 24 RBIs in just 41 games. But his physique was funny and he was a very likable character, earning him the nickname Kung Fu Panda. As he entered 2009, Sandoval was a core piece to what the Giants hoped to accomplish. With the new additions of their roster, they were preparing for a huge year. But when the season began, he weighed 246 pounds and worked his way up to 270 over the course of the season, gaining in totality 25 pounds. Still, it didn't stop him from hitting the ball harder than most and putting up an amazing season, despite swinging and missing a whole lot and barely ever walking. In fact, over the first few weeks of 2009, him and the Giants had the lowest amount of walks in the NL. You see, he had a mentality that he described, see the ball and swing. His hitting coach had actually attempted to get his walking numbers up, saying this: "As much as I try to get him to be disciplined, it's like caging a lion. He leaves the dugout ready to swing the bat. I literally tell him before every at-bat, swing at a strike." As the season went along, he ignored that advice, and it certainly did pay off. He deserved to be an MLB All-Star, but they somehow snubbed him. By the end of the year, keeping him out of the All-Star game looked stupid, considering his batting average was top 5 and he received MVP votes. On the other hand, his team had 88 wins, missing the playoffs. Though, they were about to get a lot better with the arrival of top prospects. Starting pitcher Tim Lincecum and catcher Buster Posey were both superstars to add on to their core. Sandoval had one objective given to him by San Francisco, which was to drop weight and take better care of himself to get back down below 250. When he showed up to spring training overweight and out of shape, the organization was not pleased. The effects were visible on the field. His infield hits went from 16 in 2009 to half of that in 2010 due to his speed dropping significantly. The amount of double plays he hit into also doubled. His bad performance was a .263 batting average and just 6 home runs in nearly 400 at-bats. At that point, he wasn't playing well, and off the field, things were not going well as he was going through a divorce with his wife. In July, during the All-Star break, he made the decision to leave the United States and return to his home country of Venezuela. When he returned, he had a fresh mind and began performing very well. The Giants won 92 games and took first place in their division. Pablo, the fan favorite, was expected to thrive in the playoffs, but everyone quickly realized that couldn't have been further from the truth. Not only was he unproductive and overweight, but he was also abysmal in the playoffs. They were able to win in the NLDS, but by the time they arrived in the NLCS, they decided enough was enough and officially benched him. So now, they were without one of their core players against an amazing Phillies team. A team that had more wins than any other with superstars dominating their roster. Luckily, the Giants had elite pitching, they had no problem winning the series 4-2 and advancing to a World Series. The Giants took a commanding lead and won without the Pandas' help.
The Giants are world champions!
Even though they had won the World Series, they knew they could win a lot more if they got Pablo Sandoval back to succeeding. Their idea was to put together an entire operation called Operation Panda. The main objective of it was to cut his weight down from his current 270, and by day 1 of 2010 spring training, it had worked perfectly. He slimmed down 30 pounds and was much healthier. Without a doubt, Pablo had clearly reached his peak physicality, and it was transmitting onto the field with results. Over the first month of April, he was absolutely mashing with a .313 batting average. Though his worst fear did become reality. At a time when the Giants were already struggling, he went down with a broken bone in his right wrist. He missed 41 games before officially returning in the middle of June. Pablo was able to sustain a 22-game hit streak that ended right before the All-Star game, which he was voted into. His historical season was capped off towards the end of September when he hit for the cycle, crushing a homer, hitting a single, double, and yes, even an insane triple.
He is on the move, and he's gonna make it!
It was a great way to send off his season, but they did unfortunately miss the playoffs. On the bright side, his batting average was officially 75 pounds over his weight with a .315 to go along with 23 homers. He was entering 2012 ready for another big year of winning and hitting. But to make sure his weight stayed under control, the Giants began making special arrangements, flat out telling the hotel service not to feed Pablo even if he calls. The goal was to prevent him from overeating. And then came time for the actual season to begin, where he started with a 19-game hit streak, which is a Giants record for the most consecutive hits to open a season. When May came around, his luck had unfortunately run out with a broken bone, this time in his left wrist. Pablo was out of play until early June, where he came back and was hitting .288 over the summer. But the coolest part was him making his very first All-Star game, where he doubled in the first inning to help the NL take an even bigger lead. By playoff time, he had led the Giants to 94 total wins, taking the division. In round 1 of the postseason, they found themselves facing the Cincinnati Reds, who had won even more games than they had. His big moment exactly came in Game 4, where he crushed a ball deep to right field, helping his team win that game, where they found the 88-win St. Louis Cardinals, who had a young, star-studded pitching staff with one of the better lineups in baseball. Pablo had a huge series, getting a hit in 6 of the 7 games they played in, with a lot of their wins being pure blowouts. It was enough for him to reach his second World Series, which ended up becoming the biggest stretch of games in his entire career, opening in Game 1 against the Detroit Tigers. Their young pitching staff entailed 2 future Hall of Famers, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. The world expected Verlander and the Tigers to roll through the Giants. After all, the Tigers were the overwhelming favorites to win this series. But the Giants, they were ranked second in runs scored across the entire league, and the Panda didn't plan on stopping that.
Sandoval hits it into center. Back at the wall. Come on. 1-0 Giants and a home run.
Then his next at-bat.
Fly ball into left. Back at the wall. He's homering again.
Sandoval, the same player who hadn't done a thing in the previous postseason, was a Game 1 hero. And he was so close to making history.
Until the 3rd week of August. Into center.
Pablo joined Babe Ruth, Reggie Jackson, and Albert Pujols in MLB history as the only players to hit 3 homers in a World Series game. His record was even more impressive, as he was the only player to do it in back-to-back-to-back fashion. They obviously took Game 1, and it continued throughout the series, to the point that they swept Detroit in just 4 games. Pablo Sandoval was awarded for all of his success with a World Series MVP.
Congratulations, marvelous, marvelous World Series. Congratulations.
So, in just a few years, he had already won 2 championships and a World Series MVP. The craziest part is he did it all while overweight without taking care of his body. And little did anyone know, his weight was about to get a lot higher. This is what Pablo looked like in 2010, and this is what he looked like in 2013. Arguably even bigger this time around. According to MLB reporter Ken Rosenthal, the Giants were super unhappy with his weight. Some predicted that he was pushing 300 pounds. One thing we did see is that it wasn't hindering his performance, but it was responsible for injuries. Through June, he was hitting 289 until it all fell apart as he injured his left foot, keeping him out for many weeks. When he returned 2 weeks later, he was playing decent baseball. In August, he admitted that his brother became his personal chef and helped him lose 22 pounds in the span of just 6 weeks. Over the next few months, he and his team were eliminated from the playoffs. And with his contract soon expiring, the Boston Red Sox came calling the Giants about a potential trade. But the Giants' general manager said they still need his bat. And going into 2014, they had developed one of the best cores in all of baseball. He had even reportedly lost 40 pounds headed into spring training. It was no surprise that they were one of the best teams in baseball again. Despite Sandoval at times making awful swings like this one, what even was that? As they entered the playoffs, they found themselves in Pittsburgh against the Pirates, where they immediately beat them and were moving on to the next round. They found the Nationals and had no problem destroying them, and then doing the same thing to the Cardinals in the NLCS. Sandoval was batting .326 with 14 total hits in this postseason. He found himself back in his 3rd World Series in just 7 years. And this was flat out the craziest one yet. A young Kansas City Royals team that was filled with talent. In Game 1, a runner was on first and third base. Pablo Sandoval took matters into his own hands to advance the runners with a double. Later on, the Giants homered and never ended up losing that lead. In Game 2, he was batting fourth and hoped to win even more. A few innings in, the Giants were down by a run, and Sandoval hit a deep double to center field. They were able to advance Pablo home, making it a tie game. However, in the 6th inning, the Royals began scoring run after run, solidifying a Game 2 victory. Throughout the entire series, it felt like no one could actually gain momentum as it kept going back and forth. We had officially reached the game that would decide it all, Game 7. And in that game, Pablo Sandoval broke the single postseason hit record, and it ended poetically.
Win for the San Francisco Giants for the 3rd time in the last 5 years. And their hero, Madison Bump.
Pablo Sandoval was a champion once again. His contract was set to expire, so he was about to hit free agency for the first time in his entire career. And after just a few weeks, he wound up with the Boston Red Sox on a monster 5-year, $95 million contract, making him one of the highest paid third basemen in MLB history, only behind the Yankees' Alex Rodriguez. But he left the Giants out of spite, feeling disrespected by their lack of effort to re-sign him. He was joining a team featuring tons of other superstars, from David Ortiz to Mookie Betts to Xander Bogaerts. He had the option of returning to the Giants or going to the Red Sox, and he said choosing the Red Sox was not an easy decision, saying this: "I chose to be here in Boston because I needed a new challenge and I needed to lead a new team to a legacy. I wanted to make sure I made the right decision. I'm happy I'm here." But he had no idea that his career was about to take a drastic turn. His very first impression for the Red Sox was showing up to spring training completely out of shape. Now, we know this was not uncharacteristic from him, but Boston didn't know better and were rather uncomfortable. Yet, according to Pablo, he had been working out all off-season, and specifically working on his right-handed swing. But through June, many were heavily concerned with his performance, batting just .270 with a .733 OPS. In the middle of his bad performance, he went onto his phone, onto Instagram in the middle of a game to like a photo of a woman. Talk about a simp. He was later benched and put out an apology saying, "I know I effed up. I made a mistake. I learned from that. I'm a human being, so I apologize to my teammates, to the team, to the organization, and to the fans." As his season continued, not only did his offense worsen, but he committed 15 errors defensively, which is likely a factor from the weight gain. So, looking for reasons to blame the lack of production, Boston turned to his weight gain once again. Among all third basemen, he was graded the worst, and this was also his lowest batting average to date. General Manager Dave Dombrowski said, "He's been working out since the end of the season, and we've had people in Florida visiting with him. He's doing great." In 2016, they had built a top team, but Boston was still under the impression Sandoval was having a huge weight problem. He told the media flat out, "I didn't try to lose weight or nothing. I just do my work and try to do everything I can." Pablo was almost 300 pounds and was officially benched for being the Red Sox third baseman by opening day. And when he played, it was embarrassing, like as I told you earlier, his belt popping open in the middle of a freaking swing. As the year went along, he unfortunately didn't have a chance to improve anything, suffering a season-ending shoulder injury. The Red Sox still made it to the playoffs without him as a 93-win team, but were eventually eliminated. In 2017, he had at least one more opportunity to win back his game, but if he planned on being a starter, he had to compete for the third base job. In spring training, Pablo Sandoval had looked like a true star for the Red Sox for the first time in his tenure, batting .338 with 5 homers and 20 RBIs. He won the starting position, but not for long. He played in 32 games, struggled all around, and got an ear infection. For whatever reason, they put him on a rehab assignment for that ear infection, probably as a way to prevent him from playing on the MLB roster, as he was truly terrible. And in the same way that Sandoval had been eating his entire tenure, the Red Sox decided to eat the remaining 2.5 years under his contract, officially DFAing him. Shortly after he left, he admitted, "My career had fallen into an abyss because I was so complacent with things that I had already accomplished." But shockingly, the league wasn't over him yet, and he officially returned to the Giants on a minor league contract. He quickly apologized to all of San Francisco, saying, "I learned my lesson. I wish I would have re-signed with the Giants in 2014. He did end up getting some starting reps on a very poor Giants roster, going 64-98 as the worst team he had played on to this point. And funny enough, on the last day of the season, Sandoval was responsible for a walk-off victory, costing them the #1 overall pick in the next draft. They kept him around for 2018, but things just continued getting weirder for Pablo. According to Bleacher Report, he was heavier than he ever had been to this point in his career. And then, one of his former trainers came out and said that he actually had an eating disorder, which, going based off the facts, it is certainly possible, but Pablo to this day has never admitted to it, so we still do not know. Regardless of if he did or not, he was actually playing his best baseball since 2014, though in August, he suffered a season-ending hamstring injury. He returned to the team in 2019 and had a sudden change in his approach at the plate. Pablo went back to swinging at literally everything he saw, decreasing his walking numbers and increasing his strikeout percentage. He had successfully completed a resurgence and didn't plan on stopping. Over the next season, he won the Heart and Hustle Award, which embodies a player who has passion for the game with values, spirit, and empathy, which is really funny if you're a Red Sox fan. But the cooler part is that he was nominated for the Roberto Clemente Award. With his contract officially expiring, he hoped to put on a show. And he largely did, but with a month left in the season, news broke that he would have season-ending Tommy John surgery. He was heartbroken, but the team cheered him on for potentially his final at-bat.
I give the Giants credit for making this happen. At least one more at-bat this year, and who knows, I'm sure there's some Giants fans who are thinking, is this the last time we get to see Pablo?
He said, "I wanted to cry, but I held on to it. It's great when you feel the love from the fans." Since that season, he's been around with the Braves organization and even made a spring training comeback with the Giants in 2024. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you want to continue learning more about MLB, check out my Tim Wakefield video about a pitcher who literally only used one pitch. One that happened to be the slowest pitch in baseball. Just click the video on your screen now.
Swing and a miss, he struck him out.
What a job by Wakefield.